Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's event, Future-Proofing Facilities, Tapping into Tech and Talent. I am Dan Welton, the Director of Content Strategy and Engagement for Trade Press Media Group. I want to thank the sponsor of today's event, Cummins Power Generation, and they have provided us a brief video, and then I'm going to play that for you right now.
In today's demanding world, urban environments require compact, cost-efficient solutions that deliver uncompromising performance. At Cummins Power Generation, we continue our legacy of innovation by delivering the most power-dense engine for standby power ever. Introducing the new S17 generator sets. Built on a clean sheet engine design with dual-stage turbochargers and Cummins' proprietary fuel system, the S17 generator sets deliver up to 1,000 kilowatts in a compact footprint. With a generator-mounted cooling system, enclosure, and fuel system that offers compatibility with paraffinic fuels, including HVO, we provide a more sustainable option. The power command control and HMI system ensures seamless operation with advanced paralleling modes, load sharing, protection, and monitoring capability. Catering to any urban environment, this fully integrated power solution has been designed, manufactured, and tested by Cummins without compromises for more reliable power. The S17 generator sets are the latest addition to our award-winning Centum series. With Cummins, you now have access to a complete spectrum of power.
Great. Thank you, Cummins, for sponsoring today's event. I'm just going to cover a few housekeeping details real quick. We do encourage audience questions throughout the webcast. To submit them, please navigate to the Q&A Ask Questions module at the bottom of the screen and type in your questions at any time. We'll address questions most likely at the end of today's presentation, but maybe throughout as well. To successfully earn 0.1 CEUs, you must watch 40 minutes or more of this event. You can download your certificate at the completion of the webcast from the Earn Certification module. There's also a related content module on your screen. This area has more information and links that you can explore. Today's event will also be archived at facilitiesnet.com/webcast to watch at any time. And before I cover learning our objectives and introduce our speakers, I just wanted to note that we are currently having a polling question up on screen. We're going to leave this up for a few moments while I finish these introductions. Your participation in this poll is greatly appreciated. Now, our learning objectives for today include to key in on strategies to attract strong talent, build skills within your team, and keep your pipeline healthy for the future. We're going to evaluate methods to develop team leaders and shape a clear succession plan that supports stability and growth, and understand how AI can improve efficiency and performance and how to communicate those gains to staff. Now, we have two presenters today. First up is going to be Frank Rhodes II. He's the Senior Director of CapEx and Facilities for Benchmark Senior Living. And followed by him, we're going to have Sean Black, Executive Vice President of Business Development for JDE CFS. Now, today's topics were first presented at our Elevate Facility Leadership Summit this past fall in Boston. And we wanted to give attendees here a little taste of that experience. Back at Elevate, we had 40 senior-level facility executives join us for a day and a half of education and networking. And we kicked off this event with a behind-the-scenes tour of Fenway Park, led by the Red Sox Director of Facilities and 30-plus-year industry veteran, Donnie Gardner. Donnie gave us a unique, honest, and very up-close look at operating the historic ballpark, and our attendees can tell you that it was a definite highlight of the event and their time in Boston. And the next day, during our keynote presentations, we learned about Boston University's Climate Action Plan and how this helped develop the city's first large fossil fuel-free and carbon-neutral facility. And then we also heard from Kentucky's fastest-growing school district and how they're able to secure funding for their new capital projects at a time when grants aren't readily available. And of course, we featured these two sessions that you're going to hear from today: how to leverage AI to shape the future of facility management, and cultivating the next generation of facility leaders. If any of this sounds of interest to you, I have good news. We'll be announcing dates for Elevate 2026 very soon and opening registration. We'll be sure to contact people who signed up for this webinar, but if you'd like to learn more about Elevate, please reach out to me directly and you'll find my email on the screen here. Now I'm going to introduce our panelists for our first discussion. Frank Rhodes II is the Senior Director of CapEx and Facilities for Benchmark Senior Living. And prior to this, he was responsible for engineering and facilities management for 113 hotel properties in the Northeast for Marriott International. And Frank was also one of our advisory board members for the conference, who helped kind of establish the agenda and the topics. And he was joined by our panel to discuss this topic in Boston. And so we're happy to have him back here today. Welcome, Frank.
Thank you so much, and truly appreciate having me and doing this as a follow-up and a teaser as we come into 2026 to create more traction around Elevate and what it is and how can we support our industry leaders.
And Frank, maybe you can start by telling us a little bit about your experience and then also kind of the makeup of your department. This session is about identifying those future leaders. So what are you facing? How many retirees do you have coming up soon? How many millennials and Gen Z do you currently have on your team to kind of fill those spots?
Great question, Dan, as we shape the conversation today. When I look at Benchmark Senior Living in our portfolio of 70 communities, we are up against what everyone else is with this, of retirement age. Our industry, we're roughly 10% of that, but my prior role was almost 35%. So there is a difference of who is up for retirement, who's eligible, and who will be exiting. On the other side of this pendulum, we have turnover at a very high volume because of our industry. We're running a 33% turnover year over year for our plant operations directors. And that is an industry conversation because of how difficult it is. We are taking care of someone's grandparents, mother, father, could have dementia, may need just assisted living support. And those are complicated and difficult from a mental health perspective for our associates. And you do grow with those members, right? So we are seeing an uptick in that turnover, one, because of mental health reasons, and being able to come into an industry that has that. You're seeing it on our frontline associates and being able to make that impact towards their lives for the better. So when we look at turnover within Benchmark, we look at recruiting. How are we doing that? Not only who we're partnered with, how are we seeing other industries recruit with LinkedIn, social media, right? Presence. You're going to have your own business partners, such as Indeed. And then we also have our people. Our people are one of our best recruiting paths forward that they could offer somebody of support to us if we're open to a plant operations perspective and have a posting for a specific community. So we're not only just layering within resources that are external, we're also leaning in internally. And we're also partnering with people like yourself, right? So when you look at Elevate, IFMA Boston, Facility Rockstars, other means and methods with associations or others that are trying to promote facilities, how do you lean on those resources as well and partner?
Great. And kind of with those, partnerships, are you also going to the local high school or colleges to kind of get that next generation informed about the facility management industry? I mean, it's not something people often talk about.
FM is difficult to understand, right? And does the generation understand that it's a career path? That's what we're up against and trying to create those synergies. And the answer in short is yes. From our association with IFMA Boston that I'm a part of as immediate past president, we are leveraging high school students that are a part of Skills USA. And how do we participate in some of those judging for a Facilathon or other event that they are hosting? And how do we get involved and get in front of them to be that voice in that platform, right? So that we can speak to those students, get them to have knowledge of what we're about, and then support their career growth, because they may not work for Benchmark Senior Living, but we're allowed to educate them on facility management. We're able to educate them on other industries and sectors that offer those types of positions. And we also kind of go to the next level for high school, which is our VOTEX, right? So that's the next step outside of Skills USA. We're going to VOTEX, speaking with those educators, partnering. How do we speak in front of them around what is FM as a career choice? As they may be going into welding, electrical, civil engineering, anything of that nature. But those are leaders that we can cultivate, grow, and develop. And we want to be able to have that partnership with those VOTEX schools. And then you go to the next layer, which is your 4-year college degree programs that maybe offer a facility management degree, but we're branching out also into construction management and project management, because all of those could offer a path into facility management.
Yeah, we're seeing kind of that. You mentioned like the construction industry and welding. We're seeing this renewed interest in the trades from Gen Z. So how would a facility management organization or department kind of position themselves to kind of capture that interest?
It takes time. You have to be able to put in the work and understand that it will not be an immediate reflection of what you're putting into it. And that relationship, those take time to cultivate, and being able to engage early on in your strategy as a community or in your particular company that you're working with. It's going to be a 1, 5, 10-year relationship before you start to see these dividends, but you do have to build that bench strength, right? Education will always come. And how do you ensure that you're speaking about your company, facility management, or other? You won't be able to say and pencil out in the first year, we were able to hire 3 Skills USA graduates right out of high school, or 2 VOTEX students, and the retention for those were 1 to 5 years within your own company. It has to be a long-term strategy where you might not get any in that first year relationship. You might get 1 or 2, and then you're going to have that 30, 60, 90, 1 year, hopefully 5 to 10 year lifespan where you're bringing in students and you're able to promote them within and then retain that talent, because the retain and the retention strategy has to be just as strong as what you're putting into with recruiting, because recruiting does have its own financial impact to all of our companies when you have a job posting. But what also is an impact financially to our companies is that turnover and then having to repost those same positions. But it's not just attracting the talent as your first lever in your strategy as a company. It's what are the retention methodologies, but knowing this is a long-term game plan. This is not just a 12-month, 6-month conversation. It has to be a part of your culture and something that you're able to get support and buy-in within your own organizations, where you're putting time into that VOTEC, that high school, or those students of any one of those facets of their life and education and career paths, even in the trades, right? How do we get in front of general contractors that we might be using within our own companies and start to talk to those boots on the ground, those hourly associates that are building our communities, right? Or building commercial real estate, and be able to have that conversation. So we have to do some cross-pollination there within our trades to understand that, yes, we have a deficit in trades as well, right? So there's a balancing act of where's the pipelines coming from. And I think what is evolving through the conversation that we're having today is it's not one single path that's going to solve for our deficit in talent and manpower and recruiting and retention. You're going to have multiple avenues that you're going after. It can't just be one single source.
Mm-hmm. So you were talking about that retention component. How do you sell facility management as a career path? That it's not just a job that we're going to get you right out of high school or even college, but this is a career where you can really grow and develop your skills.
I'm gonna talk about what I'm bringing to Benchmark Senior Living, and I say in that terms because my past was Marriott International Hospitality, we had that roadmap built for succession planning. You're going to have to be able to show anyone that you're trying to recruit inside of your facilities, what is the succession planning? What is the growth? And how do you come in at an entry level position and then come into a position like I have within our own company and grow? But we have milestones. We have a mentorship program built. You're going to have training opportunities. How do we invest in that particular associate as we're recruiting through that process? Giving them an ability to see what are those milestones look like in a very small snapshot, right? Because it can be overwhelming when you start talking about facility management. We wear many hats and every day is different. We could be walking into a power outage. We could be walking into a sprinkler break. We could be walking into a frozen coil that happened because of our extreme cold weather patterns. Every day will be different, and it's hard to explain those things in an interview process. And at times when you look at what we require to become either a plant operations director or regional director of facilities, you start to look at all those requirements and it's daunting, right? And it can be daunting to somebody that's trying to look at this for a career. Yet, if you have the right passion, we can train and develop those things, right? But you've got to give them the bite-sized chunks, and then you've got to be able to give them what does it look like in the future in a very meaningful way. And as you're in that recruiting process and interviews, everyone is going to need something different in how you portray that, right? So you and I talking today, I may give you a different path than what I might give Sean, who's going to present to us a little bit later on AI, because each of you are going to need something different. So us as leaders have to understand that, right? We are in the people business when we're recruiting and trying to get talent and showcase that is the right, and you can get progression and you can have a successful career within the industry and support them in that way. And it may even be not staying with our company. And that is something as a leader is difficult for us to understand, that we may invest time in someone, but they have a passion for hotels. They have a passion for senior living like I'm in, or they have a passion for commercial real estate. It's our job as a leader to figure that out and then be able to support that and cultivate it and allow them to be comfortable in those conversations when there might be a detour in their career path, and allow them to know that we're going to be there long term. There's a lot of people that I call on, right, that mentored me in my career and showed me my own succession planning, that I've changed roles X times throughout my career path. But you still want to stay in contact. But I think everyone is going to require a different approach, understanding, but it does take different approaches for different folks.
And those people who leave may come back, at future time, and they'll bring, what they've learned and new skills to the organization. So that's good. That's a good point to remember to keep in touch and encourage that growth. And over the years, talking to people, we've heard this fear of training because they're afraid that they're going to leave. And the best response I ever heard of that was a speaker at our shows who said, well, what if you don't train them and they stick around? Now you have more dead weight than you could have really been helping them.
Yeah, there's definitely a mind shift. You hit on a topic there. When you have legacy within your organization, right? Knowledge is power. And when you look at the generational changes and shifting on knowledge is power, there wasn't a shift of knowledge, to your point, from our legacy leaders and that retirement age. And that is very scary, right? How do you allow someone to be comfortable to open that up when that may have been their job, or they feel their job could be taken over by somebody else coming in? But we have to support that conversation, to your point, and put in everything that we can in training, and know you can't pencil everything out, right? It's not always about the end return financially, but it's the right thing for the organization. Something that's been missing and what you've honed in on there is that mentorship. How many of us had a mentor back in our very early stages of our careers? And when you look at that career 20, 30 years ago, we had more talent. We had more layers in an organization, those layers have changed or been eliminated, or we're doing less with more, right? And it's what you're going to hear from Sean in a minute on AI and the power of that tool that's creating some efficiencies. We still have to give back. We still have to take time for training because we are responsible to set them up for success. And we do ask a lot, but we also have to understand we have to train and develop.
Do you have a formal succession plan for your key leaders that you know are reaching retirement age? You know, when to start identifying their replacement, when to kind of start that mentorship and passing of the knowledge?
So we're at the infancy stages of developing this here, but one piece that we did get recent approval is we've added what's called a plant operations specialist, plant operations director specialist, excuse me, where if you're coming from a community level plant operations director, moving into this role, and then you can become a regional director and so on and so forth. We didn't have those layers, and we knew we needed to address that. And this is one way that we've started that process. We're also partnering with Interplay. That is going to allow us to use technology that we can put together. What is the expectations for a Tech 1, a plant operations director, a specialist, a regional, a senior director, so on and so forth. Those are all being developed now. And Interplay is an ability for us to give virtual reality training in a safe space, meaning if we wanted to have somebody go into an interactive scenario and go work on a boiler and troubleshoot that boiler, you can do it through their VR. All of these modules are built. We're going to be selecting them for each level and each category within our organization.
Do you find that use of tech also kind of helps you attract these younger professionals to the industry?
It does, and it also allows us to be competitive just within the industry itself, right? Investing in technology, the right technology. There is a lot of offerings out there on the table, and something that we have to do as an end user or a leader within your organization is understand what technologies are we going to invest in and what is the right ones for our company at that moment in time, but also what is it for 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and not oversizing that technology or overcomplicating it. But the last thing anybody wants to know as you're trying to recruit is that maybe we're still doing something on paper, right? That's not going to be meaningful to anyone that has grown up in that next generation of leader. They're used to an iPhone, an iPad at a very young age, right? And being able to use things to do more with less, and using resources that you and I didn't have as we were growing up in the industry. It's all there today, and that they expect it, right? So if you don't have the technology or the front-facing IT components, you've lost talent just in that conversation.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier you had kind of a path for people to go up the ladder. How are you identifying future leaders in the department? Are there skill sets, qualities that you look for? And then how do you kind of foster that development? Is it beyond the mentorships, or is that kind of the main way to foster it?
When you look at high performers or someone that's standing out, it's how do you recognize them in front of their peers, and how do you give them an opportunity to showcase their talents in a bigger way, where we need to give them exposure, right? And then you're testing that exposure along the way to see how are they going to react. We're in the people business, and as a leader, you have to be able to manage people, right? And you have to give them an ability to fail and then catch them and then educate upon that. Those are the conversations that we end up doing in real life scenarios. If we have a high performer, we're going to bring them in, allow them to present to our regional team, allow them to present to their peers, and then have sidebar conversations with them. Or I'll pick up the phone if I happen to see or be invited to that particular meeting. So we're doing it directly and indirectly without necessarily putting a hard shell case around that foundation and guardrails. We're allowing it to be organic, right? We're trying things. We're seeing what's working, what's not. So I think you don't always have to have the right detail plan out and just hand somebody on paper. It's got to be flexible, right? And you've got to tailor to that particular person. But we do recognize them. We do have one-off conversations, and then we invite them to other items that their peers would not necessarily be invited to, so that they can get additional exposure, or give them a special project, right? Because our best advocates to solving an issue are the boots on the ground. We may not know as a leader or running a region, but Susie might know, or Frank may know, or other. So utilizing all of your talent and understanding what they can do, but showcasing them and recognizing that particular associate that has done the work. I think that's something very important. And as a leader, it can be difficult to craft that in a meaningful way. And what I mean by that is, when you're recognizing somebody, it's not about us, right? It's not about I did this. And how do you make sure you're showcasing that message that it is who did the work and how proud you are of them, and being able to get that exposure out there, but not making it about I. It has to be about the person. And being able to do that takes some time as a leader to develop and understand.
And I think your answer kind of answers this question that we received about keeping employees engaged with the work to want to stay in the department and stay in the industry. Are there other things that you do to engage probably the younger generation?
It's you got to meet them where they're at, right? And those are challenging items. I try to invest in myself to be able to figure those things out, and how do you approach people and cultivate that confidence within them. You do see a confidence gap in the generations coming up, and how do you provide them with an ability to have confidence that they're making the right decisions, or that you're trusting within them. So you got to build trust. You have to give them some recognition. You have to develop, mentor. And something that we've kind of gone through with our organization is making it personal, right? So personally recognizing birthdays, personally recognizing their milestones in their career from years of service amongst the entire organization. So those small little personal inserts, and making ourselves a piece of that, right? So something I do, I just did it right before the holiday and Thanksgiving. I will send out a picture of my family, myself, and a message around the holiday. And then that creates that human element. And for that younger generation, that does resonate, in my opinion. Doesn't mean that I got all the reply emails back to me, thank you so much. That's not what it's for, right? It's the exposure and being able to, as a leader, say, I'm going to put myself out there on a personal note, and I'm not just a person behind the desk and the spreadsheet and all of the other pieces and resources for accountability. I'm real too, right? I'm a father. I have 3 children. I have a wife, and this is life, right? We all have that. And we all put our pants on the same way. So I think it's a part of that conversation and building those relationships and being approachable, which continues to attract and retain the talent that you have in the organization when you're speaking about any generation.
Last question here for you. I imagine you have vacancies right now. You have open positions. What is your biggest hurdle to finding qualified candidates, and kind of what are you doing to overcome that?
Don't rely on your recruiting agency, I would say. And that is going to get you the result you need faster, and utilizing resources that you have within your industry, and even your other partners outside of it. Utilizing vendors. A lot of the vendors that we use today are having interactions amongst other communities, other facets within our sector of the business, and they're going to have a recommendation. I don't think we use our vendors enough in those discussions. And they are seeing all of these end users and leaders across different communities, different properties, different firms, and they will have a recommendation for us, and they can have that conversation. They're going to know someone that we do not know in our network. And that helps us because then you're getting real-time feedback from a trusted partner that you're utilizing within your organization. They know us as a leader, they know our organization, and they also can be our advocate. So I think vendors are someone that we should be tapping into as a resource when we look at recruiting, and it's underutilized and may not be even realize that you should be using them.
Well, great. Thank you so much for sharing. We keep the questions coming. We're going to bring Frank back at the end for a Q&A. Thank you for joining us again this morning, and thank you for your time in Boston. You and the panel shared a lot of this great information, so we're happy to do it again to our virtual audience here.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to bring on Sean Black. Sean's the Executive Vice President of Business Development for JDE CFS. He's also one of Building Operating Management's facility influencers. He's known for translating complex strategies into clear, actionable moves. And he is also the co-host of the new Decoded podcast, where he shares his expertise and insights about growing and living with purpose. Thanks for joining us again today, Sean.
No problem. Thanks for having me. I was excited to come back and talk about more AI.
Right. And in Boston, we talked about AI, we talked about Internet of Things, we talked about autonomous equipment. Today, in an interest of time, we're probably going to boil that back to AI, but it does bleed into these other areas as well. So again, feel free to kind of discuss all technology, but let's start by, how are you seeing AI being used in facility management today?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, we work with a lot of different brands and a lot of different segments within facility management, whether it's restaurants or hotels or retail. And it really varies. I found a lot of the FMs I'm working with are really planning to start using AI. Haven't really done that yet. And then others are really jumping in, as full force, and they're creating their own programs, and they're creating, and using IoT in all kinds of different ways. But for the most part, I know from my experience talking with people, it's really boiled down to a couple of different things. Probably preventative maintenance is one of the biggest things you're going to see out there that people are starting to use. And, I was talking about people are not really using it yet, but I was reading about 77 to about 80% of FMs are planning to start to use AI in 2026. So a lot of them are really in the planning stages to roll this out, but preventative or predictive maintenance is one of those things that is going to be a big deal for them. Smart building controls, everything from adjusting heating to cooling and lighting. Energy optimization, that's always a big deal. That's the ROI a lot of times with the AI. Work order management, I know on our side of things and FM, this is a huge effort for us that we're all putting in to use AI. AI can definitely help prioritize and assign tasks faster and get things moving. And then space utilization is another one as well. There's also security monitoring. I mean, that's a big part of it. There's a lot of really great innovation going on in AI when it comes to the combination of using cameras and audio and sensors to obtain all this data and really put it to use in very interesting ways.
Yeah, you mentioned the data and kind of, AI. We've heard about Internet of Things for decades, supposed to be capturing this facility data. What should facility executives kind of be doing with the data? How can they extract meaning from it? And, I think because we've had it for these sensors for years, no one at the time is AI the final piece that's going to be able to say, this is what the data means for you.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the challenge with data is knowing what to do with it. And the biggest part of that is having so many different parameters that you're collecting from so many different places and then trying to figure out what to do with that. AI is very good about looking at patterns. AI was created in a big part to think like human brains do with pattern recognition and looking at patterns and making decisions like that. But it can do it so much faster than humans can. So it can take a huge data set and look for patterns. And, when do problems happen? What causes those spikes, whether it's voltage or pressure or what have you. And so it's really using all that information to find out what's going on with the equipment and then filtering it to a dashboard. This is where the human element comes into play. So we can really watch all the data, in a nice GUI interface and tables and pie charts and all this good stuff, and then make some decisions on what's going on with all of our equipment out there. Everything from, do I repair this right now? What's the life cycle like on this? And that's the other part of this data too, is categorizing and gathering data on assets that are in the field. Yeah, so all that data comes into play, and AI is going to be one of the defining things that's going to help us take it to the next level.
Do you see, so with this data capturing, is the analysis usually part of that product, or is this something that FMs should take it, use into a chat GBT, obviously, get a business one so it's not out there for everyone to see, or if you have any proprietary data, make sure that you're not sharing that. That's, good advice there. But is that something they can do on their own to analyze?
Yes, they can, for sure. Whether a good model I probably would recommend is Claude for that. Claude is really good for financial data and, and programming and that kind of analytical look at things. But there are a lot of other platforms that you can use. What's going on right now is large companies like IBM and all these other platforms are integrating these features into their software platforms. So, whether it's your ERP or your IWMS, whatever you're using to dispatch work orders, is all this is coming into play where it's now integrating these features. So for the most part, Frank was talking about evaluating technology. This is going to be a big part of that, is really evaluating which partner you pair with, what platform has what feature, and that's really where I think the AI is going to come into play on a day-to-day basis, is having the right partner, the right platforms.
Are there any kind of real-world success stories that you can share, maybe from your work about putting kind of this data to use with AI? Maybe it's sustainability or energy or water reduction. What is an example that our attendees could take away with them to see how it all works?
Yeah, a lot of I have a couple, but two that I know from a manufacturer side. There's companies like JCI that are amazing, that have incorporated IoT in their devices, and they're saving, 20 to 30% using smart controls. From a personal standpoint, I have one FM I work with, is a brilliant guy. Works for a dental brand, and he rolled out IoT sensors on all of his equipment, and he's very smart. He did this himself, worked with a partner, wrote the software, and then started monitoring all these things. And he saved a lot of time, but more importantly, he's actually been able to save equipment from it, completely malfunctioning and needing to be replaced. So he's able to kind of save and extend the lifetime over a few of his compressors. And for him, that's it's small scale, right? It's a couple of $1,000 here or there. But if you look at that use case and you explode that out overall, that's a lot of money that's being saved by being able to avoid costly repairs, getting the PM maintenance in time, and catching things before they become really, really serious with equipment.
Earlier, with Frank, we were talking about labor. There's a lot of labor shortages right now in the industry. How can AI, and here maybe, where we talked in Boston about, autonomous equipment, how is this technology able to help with labor shortages? And again, we're not looking to necessarily replace positions, but there's not enough, manpower to go around right now. How can the technology fill those gaps?
Yeah, it's interesting. Listen, a lot of time is spent on tedious tasks, a lot of follow-up, a lot of analysis, and a lot of monitoring is done in person, sidewalks, etc. AI and technology, leveraging everything that comes into play, is going to allow us to really take advantage of gathering information in the field that we don't personally have to gather. FMs typically will visit sites, take a look at equipment, what's going on, work with their technicians if they have them to do that. All that stuff is going to go away. And then analysis of all that equipment and that data is going to be much faster, as well as I was saying earlier. But there is a component of this where AI is going to make things so much faster that a lot of FMs will need to retrain and make sure they understand how to use the AI and implement AI. Otherwise, there's going to be a bit of a challenge there. I know we have a gap in knowledge right now. There's a serious skill gap. AI also can help solve that gap. I'm working with a company right now, kind of consulting with them. And one of the things we're doing is we're surveying all of their legacy technicians, gathering content, best practices, all this information, and loading it into a database that's a private AI. And what that's going to be able to have them do is the new technicians will be able to access that database in a LLM and ask it questions. Chatbots are a phenomenal tool, and we are used to using very large models that will cover everything. The future of this, though, is going to be very specialized models that are specific for trades, specific for different professions, and in doing that, we're capturing that information and being able to retrain the people that are coming in, when they need it on demand. So I think a lot of that technology is going to just save time, and in doing so, it's going to be able to allow the existing FMs to leverage that, and they won't need as much labor hours to do repetitive tasks that AI can do for them.
Where would you recommend facility executives start, when it comes to AI? I'm sure a lot of people, like you said, more people are going to start implementing it in 2026, but where should they even start? They say they're going to, but what's the best place to begin with?
Yeah, I think research and then reaching out to partners, technology partners, is the first place to do that. Start understanding how it's being used in the software, and then rolling out slowly. IoT is not a really expensive undertaking. You can start small with a small subset of equipment and then test and monitor and then expand out from there. The main thing is just kind of getting started and learning, AI, even if it's just from the chatbots perspective. It's not hard to get in there and create chatbots of your own and start customizing them if you take the time to learn. There's amazing resources. YouTube University is one of the greatest places you can learn. There's amazing content out there. There's some really good certification programs. IBM has some, Google has some, and they're practically free, that will give you all the basics of AI. It's one of those things with facility managers where there was a time where they didn't really have to deal with an IT department. Now they have a long history of doing that. This is just the next step in that. They're going to have to be able to adapt and become familiar with AI. And so training is the best place to start, and then working with partners that are rolling it out. The training is going to help them because they're going to be able to evaluate the products at a more educated level, and and then help make better decisions on what technology they're going to need to roll out for their facilities. And again, that's all very specific on the type of facility they're running.
Mm-hmm. Any recommendations on how they could sell this to management, that we want to start implementing, these products, and it's going to come with a price tag?
It's going to come with a price tag. Yeah, I mean, first start with Claude and learn Claude. It's really simple. Then you take that all the information, you put it in Claude, and you ask for an ROI analysis, and it's going to spit one out that your CFO will respect. It's really good. It's going to be led by the dollar, right? Leadership looks at the return on investment above all else. And the FN department is one of those departments where it's necessary, but operations typically comes first. if you're going to make a change, everyone knows you're going to have to lead with the dollar, and saving money is the best way to do that. So get that analysis done. You don't have to be a financial guru to do this. Like I said, Claude is a phenomenal tool for financial analysis. You can use other LLMs, but I would use Claude for that. I have developed very complex financial models for CFOs and that are making these decisions right now about, changing over entire platforms that are using AI. And it helps tremendously. It really, really does. It makes a lot of sense. It takes all the things into consideration: their time, the money, the cost of the equipment, the life cycles of the equipment, warranty capture. I mean, there's just so much that you can put in there that will help justify making that investment.
And then lastly here, kind of any misconceptions you think facility managers have about, implementing AI that we should be clearing up?
I think most people think it's just too hard, or it's too late, or it's not even soon enough to start thinking about it. The reality is, AI is already here. It's already rolled out. It's already a part of our marketplace, and they're going to need to hop in very quickly to catch up. It's still early, but it's not that earlier now. So much has been done in 2025 with AI and IoT and robotics. Next year, in 2026, robotics is part of IoT and part of AI is rolling out, and it's going to be changing the landscape tremendously. So I think there's a lot of misconception. Maybe it's going to be taking their jobs. Maybe, they feel like, what am I going to do? I need a complete new career. Not necessarily. I think the people who adopt AI and learn about it, those are the ones that are going to be able to stay and excel and provide more value. So I recommend doing that. And it's not hard. I think people think you have to go to school for this stuff. Let me tell you, you don't. You don't have to go to school to learn AI. You can, like I said, YouTube and all these other resources are available, and they're free, and they're very, very good. So hop on, your computer, start learning AI right now as fast as you can. That would be my recommendation. And I think the biggest misconception that is that it's really hard. It's really not.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks, Sean. Thank you for coming back today. We had a great fireside chat in Boston, and I was excited to be able to have it again here virtually with you. So thank you for coming this fall, and thank you for coming again today. We're going to bring Frank back on as well. We have some time for questions, so please go to the Q&A module, type in your questions, and we'll get to as many as we can. I got one here for Sean, asking about kind of IoT sensors. Are you seeing that? Are there just sensors that you can add to existing products like a soap dispenser, or do you have to purchase an IoT soap dispenser and replace everything?
I don't know about a soap dispenser in particular, but but there are IoT devices you can add, and so you can make older equipment smarter. But a lot of the newer equipment is rolling out with IoT. But yeah, I mean, not everyone's going to want to go through and replace every one of their boilers so they have an IoT boiler. It's probably not practical, but you can add devices to them.
Mm-hmm. And encourage everyone to ask questions. We have, if you weren't able to join us in Boston, this is the time to get your questions in. Besides helping to write or compile written documents, what would be the first thing someone might try to use AI for in facility management?
Analysis. Straight up analysis. It is a phenomenal tool for analysis. Data, the input of LLMs right now is so large. I mean, you can input a tremendous amount of data through files, and it will be able to break down all of that data. I've uploaded, upwards to 10 files at a time with huge amounts of data. We're talking labor hours, we're talking parts and R&M costs, and it is able to read all of it and understand it in a matter of moments, and spit out an analysis that's just phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And Frank,
and
from
check it,
the
of course. Read through it and double check
yeah,
everything.
always good
But
advice. Yes, it's
yeah,
not perfect. It will hallucinate. You have to uh, double check the work. And then people's reaction usually is, "Oh, if I have to check it, I should have just done it myself the first time." It still will be faster. I mean, just
oh
proofing it will be
yeah,
faster than you creating it. So
yeah,
don't
it's
use
gonna be a
that as
lot faster. It's like saying I should have wrote the book everything by myself, and you can do that too. You can write. There's so many things you can write, and then go back and prove it and correct it and make your own changes, and it's so much faster. Analysis is just the same thing. Going through, check the formulas, look at it, they all line up, it makes sense. Great,
Mhm.
save you so much more time.
And Frank, maybe you can speak on this from the staff side. Do you see adoption of this technology harder with kind of this older generation? Do you put in the time to train them on it, or is it best just to kind of hire young who kind of have this as a secondhand knowledge for it?
Like you're always going to have a mix, right? Of who do you have within your own company and what's that profile makeup? And they're all going to take one piece of that, right? And you need to use the data. Something that we always talk about here at Benchmark is what data we're going to use needs to be meaningful and then needs to have actionable items against that, right? We have data at our fingertips, it's accessible. And when you run a lean model, like all of our businesses are doing at this particular moment in time, if you are not utilizing the technology to make the most out of your educated in your business decisions, it's going to take you faster to get to market and to speed and to be the leader within your own industry, right? So you've got to be able to make actions from the data. But if you don't know what you're trying to ask it, that can create challenges within itself. And that will allow you just to learn how to use the tool and make it more powerful.
Yeah, I would always say garbage in, garbage out too. You got to be careful what you put in.
Yeah. When it comes to IoT enabled equipment in facility management, what have you seen to have the greatest impact on operation? Is there a place to start in the facility?
I mean, if I was going to start implementing it on a build of my own, I would start with HVAC and electrical. And that is probably the highest place. I mean, the ROI there is huge. When you start realizing you can monitor those devices, you can see if a room is being freaking chilled, if pressures are out of alignment, it's all these things. That's the place to start. It's the easiest, and it is scalable. And then the more you get implemented, the more data you get, the more valuable the data becomes.
It's even vendor accountability, right? So it's not only that first line of defense, but it can be vendor accountability in the end of performance.
100%.
So we have one attendee asking that they find that more and more that some AI ends up generalizing and not being able to back up the resources. This person's even called it out, and they agree that they can't produce the resource. They will even admit the lapse when questioned. Is there a way to get that diligence without reminding it every time that it's your requirement? Like, I guess, do you have prompts how best to train the AI in this?
Yeah, custom AI. You start it, you program it, you start from scratch on a bot. You give it specific data to reference, and that will rein in the I don't know what I'm talking about features. Yeah, you got to be. I mean, there is definitely there are chatbots out there that are really designed to just keep you talking and have fun and do that stuff. It's more entertainment value. And there are others that are better for programming and data analysis. So choose your platform better, try other platforms. But, creating something from a chatbot from scratch, it's not hard. It's very easy. It's very easy. Mm-hmm. And so you can load that with the right data and you're going to get more specific answers.
I think to your point, Sean, right? Choosing the right application for the right conversation, right? What are you trying to solve for? And then knowing that not all A is built alike and not all platforms are the same and you're not going to use them interchangeably. So it is overwhelming, right? To that person's conversation to us right now. And you can't just select one for all issues or instances and pieces of the business. So it does start with the education of yourself and
Yep.
educating why are you going to use it, what's the end result and outcome that you're trying to get, and evaluating it to say, is this the right one for us? So there's a lot of education on the backside to have happen
Yeah.
before you start using it.
The other thing I would add there is chatting with your bot is not a prompt. It's not. I'm sorry. You have to learn prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is not hard to learn, but once you understand how to create proper prompts, that will help, like you say, garbage in, garbage out. If you ask the wrong question that's vague, you're going to get vague answers.
And it will create an answer. And so if you didn't give it the right prompt, and that's where you'll get the hallucination, because it'll give you an answer, but it wasn't the one you were looking for.
100%. Yeah. Again, like I wouldn't use Grok for analysis. It's great for looking at trends, with people and what's going on in social and news, and then GPT is pretty good overall for a lot of stuff. But the like Midjourney is better for graphics. Like there's every different platform out there has different strengths. So just keep up with the platforms. There's not that many. There's a handful. There's new ones coming out every single day. It's kind of crazy, but use the right platform for the right job.
And like you said, and the prompt, I mean, we're starting to see like prompts are almost like the instruction manual for this. They just released, the bots or, the chat bots and that, and you just were to use it. Now we know, okay, we're going to have to, it's like a science coming up with the right prompts for it.
Yeah. I would tell you a prompt's about a page long, a good one, a really good one, and it's very specific on function and outcome and results and what you're looking for. And a really bad prompt is, a couple of sentences. But what am I looking for here? I don't know. What's this? It's just chatting. You're not going to get good information.
Mm-hmm. Last question here. Is there a particular, AI that you would recommend that's more user-friendly to load institutional information from legacy workers to new ones for succession planning and onboarding?
Yeah, that's a complex question. I like GPT because I am good with creating bots and loading data in those bots, and getting the paid version gives you a little bit more, gives you more security. There are ultimately, if you create your own private AI, that's probably the best way to go if you want a very, very secure platform with very particular outcomes. But yeah, I mean, GPT is really good. It's a good generalist, and you can create some good bots out of it that are very useful, very, very useful. And legacy is one of those things. Like I said, I'm working with a company right now that we're using GPT to create that bot for training. We internally, we have an AI FM, and it's been given certification, all the details on what FMs need to know, 30 years experience loading this thing. And it's very good. I gave it to our COO. She's former FM, and she's been doing it for 20 years. And she's like, "Oh, this is really good." So it passed her test. It's pretty good. But yeah, ChatGPT is probably the place to start with that. But it just depends on what you're going, what you want to do with it.
Well, great. We're at the top of the hour. We want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you so much, Sean and Frank, for all the great information today. We appreciate Cummins Power Generation for sponsoring today's event. And if you want to learn more from them, please view the links in the related content module. Also, please reach out to me, send me an email if you're interested in attending Elevate in 2026, and we'll be sure to pass along the information to you when it's available, and it should be very soon. And just as a reminder to everyone, to receive your CEU certificate, you can download it from the Earn Certification module on your screen, and today's webcast will also be archived on facilitiesnet.com. And with that, I'm going to conclude today's event. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and have a great rest of your day.